The video that you are about to watch is an excerpt of the original. After my long efforts in dealing with YouTube's copyright management system, I had to give up. I haven't given up my projects though. And while we cannot publish the entire video here due to the imminent danger of having the channel closed down, you can still enjoy excerpts which we've carefully chosen in order to make this video meaningful, fun, and educational. If you want to watch the complete video, including the sound of the music from the original recording, as well as special edition videos which will never be published here on YouTube due to the same copyright issues, and the Beatles 150 series, as well as other series and courses, you're welcome to visit my Ko-fi or Patreon page. I hope you enjoy this video. Hi everyone! We're back to the Beatles again, and we are still in A Hard Day's Night. And this song is I'm Happy Just to Dance With You. I guess this is the first song I've recorded since we decided to put everything on Ko-fi and Patreon complete, and excerpts of it on YouTube for public consumption. So all the copyright stuff is fresh in my mind at the moment. Whenever we get the piano, I'll start producing that side of the project as well. Anyway, I'm Happy Just to Dance With You is what Vlad has handed to me today. And let me read what he has given me to know ahead of time. The genre, according to the official website, is rock and roll. Lead vocals are by George Harrison, whose performance in the film marked the first commercial music video segment with Harrison singing lead. Paul McCartney said, "We wrote I'm Happy Just to Dance With You for George in the film. It was a bit of a formula song. I guess they've done enough music by now to have some formulas under their belt, so to speak. And it's always good to have a few formulas you can pull out when you need them." We knew that in the key of E, if you went to an A flat minor, you could always make a song with those chords. But this is funny, he calls it A flat minor. I'll tell you why in a minute. That change pretty much always excited you. This was one of these. This one, anyway, was a straight co-written song for George. So, why is it funny that he calls it A flat minor? Because in the key of E major, that same note is typically called G sharp. And so he knows it by another name. It's still the same key, same chord, same note. He calls it A flat. I would call it G sharp. A unique aspect of this recording session was that it was held on a Sunday. This was the first Sunday recording session ever scheduled for the Beatles, no doubt because it was the very last day available to record songs for the movie. The occurrence of Sunday recording sessions became much more commonplace from this point forward. All right. Interesting. Well, let's see what this one sounds like. That's a really strong chord to start with. But then it goes kind of dark and shifts gentle very quickly. The things that jumped out at me was this C natural right there. It gives a nice little chromatic shift very early. And maybe that's one of the reasons that it feels a bit short, because we start to expect to feel that to develop a bit, and then suddenly, boom, straight into the verse. This whole song, when I first listened to it straight through, it felt very short. And almost like we barely got into it and started finding our way, settling into it, and then it's over so fast. And as I'm listening through this second time, I'm trying to feel because some songs can be incredibly short, and yes, they come and go very quickly, but we feel quite comfortable in them right away. This one makes me feel like there's so much happening, so much going on, packed into such a small space. Do you hear how it happens so quickly? One thing, and then the next, and the next. I can hardly mark and keep up with it. But if you're going to have a formula song, then it's not a bad idea to keep it very dense so that it doesn't feel like, oh, that was just a recipe we threw out and take it or leave it. This, I feel like they did a pretty good job of making it interesting, even though it's fairly predictable in a lot of ways. But I haven't quite figured out the pattern of when he does that little bit of just a hint of a roll. But when it comes rather, at least since I don't know the pattern yet, it feels a little bit randomly, which makes it a little bit extra fun because we never know when to expect it. Is it going to be here? Is it not? It kind of keeps me on the edge of my seat a bit. And now here, I think, is what he was saying about the E to A flat. As I said, I'm going to call it G sharp. Maybe I should explain. How can A flat and G sharp be the same thing? We started in a more C sharp minor quality. Now as we get to the verse, we are living more in the E major realm. And here is where, well, we have E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B. I won't name the rest because it doesn't matter. Notice I named G sharp in that sequence. E, F sharp, G sharp. Now remember, I said this could be G, this could be A flat lives between, or G sharp lives between. I can even show you that on my harp. I can make A flat sound the same as G sharp. And now I'm playing two notes that sound exactly the same. Kind of cool. Anyway, at this point I want to say that they did a really good job of creating a nice little tune with a nice set of accompaniment that worked really well. It all fits. It works. It has that little harmonic tweak to keep it from being boring. It has those nice little drum fills and the boom, boom things to liven it up a little bit rhythmically. There's a lot of guitar strumming in the background that keeps a very busy, active, full texture behind it all. And behind all of that, we have this lively bass line, which really, I personally wish it would stand out a little bit more. It feels like such a nice, dynamic contribution, and I feel like it gets lost in all of this. But it's there, and if we listen for it, we can hear it. This one feels a little bit like they have looked back to and kind of done a little bit of a backtracking to their Valentine's card days when they were writing all these sweet little miniature juvenile love songs. And as I said at the beginning, this is the first song I've recorded of the Beatles since the whole copyright mess that made us have to reset everything. And so I have this question in my mind. Why do these big companies like UMG hold so tightly to some of the material that they own, although not to all of it? Why do they hold so tightly to the Beatles? I don't know. I do know that these songs are incredibly relatable and memorable, easy to sing, easy to build into your daily life. I don't know who's managing the policies on these things. It doesn't matter. I don't know what the reasons are for it. But one of the little questions that has settled in my mind is, are they doing this because they recognize how easy it is for these to become embedded in the, shall we say, the modern folk, we could call it folk repertoire, meaning so ubiquitous, so woven through the cultural fabric of society. Yes, they're old, they're a bit dated at this point, but at the same time, they're still very relatable for quite a large population. And I don't think that this copyright grip is anything new. I think it's been going on for quite some time. So I get this feeling that perhaps they're afraid of it becoming, of one of them or some of them becoming so familiar, so comfortable, that they lose their grasp of it. What do I mean by that? Well, there's another song which until just a very few years ago was copyrighted. You could not sing it in public without a license. And the licenses ran $700 and upwards. That was Happy Birthday. Happy Birthday was owned by one of these big companies for most of the 20th century. I don't remember the exact dates. Anytime any movie or TV show or public event wanted to use Happy Birthday, they had to pay a license for it, a license fee. And it was expensive. The lower end, I think, if I remember right, it was $700, was just for permission to sing it live in a public setting, like, say, a restaurant. Which is why, for such a very long time, restaurants and other places like that, they would bring out their little birthday cake, but it had to be the crowd gathered to celebrate the birthday, not the waiters and waitresses and restaurant staff singing, because otherwise it's very possible they could get caught for it and have to pay a whole lot. That all changed just a few years ago. Was it 2017? If I'm remembering correctly, this is a few years back. I don't remember the exact dates. Finally, a judge ruled that they no longer had, that it was not copyrighted as they had claimed. And they had to refund, I don't know how many millions of license fees to all kinds of organizations, people, individuals, companies who had paid them over the decades for permission to use Happy Birthday. One of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons that this lawsuit about Happy Birthday was successful is because Happy Birthday has spread through all the world and is so embedded in the culture that it qualified as a folk song, meaning it was too widely used, too widely known to be claimed and owned and handled by a company as they were claiming it to be. In other words, it became a song of the people, owned by the whole world, basically. It's so embedded in the culture that nobody could claim control over it as they were attempting to do. I wonder if there's this recognition or this fear that the Beatles' music, at least their early music, is so relatable and so easy to grasp and take hold of by the ordinary person. Anyone. You can grab a guitar and start strumming, and maybe you won't know all their cute little chords and quirky turns of harmony, etc. But you know enough. You can strum along, you can sing along, you can get your friends involved, you can have a social activity. You can get together in someone's basement, in someone's kitchen, in someone's backyard, and start singing and have fun with the Beatles' music. And, of course, you can dance to it. And young people love to dance. Now, it would be so easy for this music to be taken hold of by the population, the world population, in such a way that UMG would lose their grip. They would lose control. There would be so many transgressions of and infringements on their copyrights that where would you start? How would you gather it back in? I wonder if that's a bit of the reason why they are so militant about, and even excessive about their ownership of this music. Just a thought. Anyway, it struck me here as I was listening to this song as well, because again, it is like a modern folk song. It is something that could become so woven in the fabric of life and society, music-wise, melody-wise. Now, of course, I'm using the term folk music rather broadly here because there is a specific definition of what qualifies as folk music. But what I mean is music which the people have taken hold of and adopted and adapted for their own selves. And I think it would be very easy for the Beatles music. In fact, one of my followers on my channel and one of my supporters said in a comment saying about another Beatles song that I listened to earlier, saying, "You have no idea what it was like to be a teenager driving with our friends down the road and to hear this song come on the radio for the first time. It was electrifying. It changed everything." And, well, leave it to the Beatles. And yes, I'm beginning to understand what so many of you have said about how when the Beatles came on the scene, it changed the world of music, at least popular music. I don't know if it had such an impact on classical music, but certainly the popular music and the everyday music culture in people's lives changed drastically. And, shall I say, for the better? I think I can, even now at this point, because what can't be good about creating so much music that so many people fall in love with and relate to and sing along with? I'll see you next time.